It's been a while since I used this. How do I
Hel-
share my slide decks? Do I?
oh, Hello,
Oh, sorry.
hello. All good. Hello, hello, and welcome back to this awesome SEO Mastery Summit with Greg Elfrink. And we are going to talk in a couple of minutes about how to use your SEO agency as a private equity firm. And Greg haven't been playing around with StreamYard for a while. So in a minute or two, we'll kick off, and he will share his screen and go into the presentation and all this good stuff. But we'll just start it a couple of minutes early just to make sure we get people in, and we have give everyone an opportunity to be here from the start. So I see lots of amazing people. Alicia's already here. Throw us a comment and say hello. We're eager to hear from all you amazing human beings out there. And all good. Right, Greg. We are at the hour. Do you want to go ahead and see if we can figure out this technical
This
difficulty?
technology. Yeah, it's just the share button, I'm assuming. Yeah.
I would reckon this. I'd reckon this.
All right. Chrome tab. Can you see my screen?
I can indeed.
All right. Oh. I think I lost sound to you, Matt.
You did. There we go.
Okay.
So if you
We all
can
know that my headphones die.
if you can full screen it, I think that would be great.
Yep. There we go.
Perfect. Fantastic.
All
Greg.
right.
Take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me here, Matt. It's always enjoy giving a presentation to some fellow SEOs. So this should be a pretty exciting presentation, I think, for anyone that's running an SEO agency or thinking about running one, because there's the first part of this presentation is really going to cover what's it kind of like growing an SEO agency. Is a little bit different than how it is sometimes advertised. So if you don't know who we are, just real quick, I work for Empire Flippers. We are the #1 largest curated marketplace in the world when it comes to buying and selling profitable online businesses. So we've sold over 1,600 businesses now, and we have made over 40 millionaires just from the idea of them exiting their business, just from them exiting rather. Over $100 million in deals sold. That's actually old. It's much higher than that. And yeah, we've been in the Inc. 5000 4 years in a row for fastest growing company in America. So my name is Greg. I'm the head of marketing over at Empire Flippers. I lead the team. I help grow the brand and do this. I educate the markets about the potential they have when it comes to buying and selling. And there's a lot of different ways you can slice buying and selling businesses. It's not as clear cut as you might think. And there's tons of different strategies that people don't talk about very often. And this is going to be one of them. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about here. So Act 1, I'm going to cover what I call the dream of an agency. In Act 2, we're going to cover from how you pivot your agency from being a service-based business to an asset-based business. And then we're going to talk about the Asset Flywheel, which is a special strategy I've seen our customers use to great effect for scaling their wealth creation. And finally, we're going to talk about how this all comes together where you, as an SEO agency owner, can start acting like your own version of private equity. So let's get into it, the dream of an agency. So when we first start our agencies, these are some of the things that we're aspiring to do, right? An agency tends to have huge margins, especially SEO agencies. Like once the site is ranked, like it can be a real cash cow, each client that is paying you, right? You're paid up front, right? You get paid to learn in some cases. If you're just starting out, you don't have to put in your own money. The company is putting the money with you in a lot of the cases. And you make money right now. All of us in SEO know if we've dabbled in affiliate sites, it can be 6 to 18, 24 months down the road before we start making money, depending on how fast the site ranks, right? And it's rarely ever a fast process typically. But with service businesses like an agency, you get paid right away. You get to make money right now. And of course, retainers. You get guaranteed income every month from all those retainers you're going to sign. All this sounds great, right? So this is how a typical agency is born that I have seen, where someone decides to quit their job, leave the agency they might be working at as an employee to go off and start their own because they know they can do things so much better. They get that first client, right? And this is like the first proof in the pudding that you can really do this, and it feels great. It feels awesome. You have this retainer for days now. You've got a great business plan. You know how to keep going to get clients. Just keep doing what you already did, and now all you need to do is scale up. Now, easy, right? You just hire and relax, hire that team. The client acquisition is on point, and you get to benefit from that amazing cash flow, right? The problem is it never goes this way, right? That's not the way reality tends to work when we are building out our agencies. So this is a little bit more accurate picture of how it often looks like. So you get that first client. Like I said, everything is great. You get the first few clients, it's still feeling awesome. You do those first hires, everything is running smooth. And then you run into some problems. And the more clients you have, the more problems you start discovering. And as you're scaling up, suddenly one of your key employee leaves to probably go start their own agency, just like you did. They always want a bit of the equity themselves, right? So they go and start their own business. And now you're asking, what am I doing? I'm doing a bunch of work. My hair is on fire. My employees are not as good as me. It's hard to keep up. This dream sucks, right? This is a common ailing problem for a lot of agency owners. And this is where the dream ends. And you wonder, all those people selling the courses about starting an agency, you wonder, did they ever actually do this? Because this certainly feels different than what I was advertised, right? So as you grow your agency, the dream can become more of a nightmare as you realize all the problems with an agency model, right? Client expectations going crazy as scope creep enters into every job. You have clients churning, whether they've been with you for 6 months or 18 months. It always hurts when they leave. And then there's scaling. Scaling can be an incredibly difficult thing to do in any business, but it's particularly hard in service businesses, not just agencies, but any service business, because of how key labor is so important to the growth of your business. And finally, you're doing all of this for mainly a valueless asset. Like if you wanted to sell your agency with Empire Flippers, for example, there's a good chance we would reject you because agencies are so notoriously difficult to sell. They have to be really big, first of all, in the several $1 million range typically to really sell one. And they are just difficult. There is a very small subset of people who want to buy it. So a lot of the stuff you're building can feel kind of like this hamster wheel you're on when you realize all this negative stuff. And this is the 20 client problem. It is around 10 to 20 clients when most agency owners start seeing all the headaches that the model has. So especially if you're doing it kind of like as a one-man show, or maybe you have a small little team, once you get to 20 or 20 clients, the problems can really start magnifying. So what are you going to do about this? Well, there is something you can do, and that is changing your business model. And that is where we talk about going from your typical service model, which is what most agencies are, to an asset model over time. So let's talk about it. The great thing about agencies, after all this negative stuff I just said, is you actually are in a fantastic position to take advantage of all the opportunities that bound in the online business space. You already have the professional touch. You have a team of professionals working for you. Ideally, if you actually have employees underneath you, they know what to do. You have processes and SOPs. If you don't, talk to Mads. He's definitely going to help you on that stuff. So they start working like clockwork on digital initiatives. The other big advantage you have as an agency owner is the client mindset. You're used to working on many different projects, all of which need to be implemented with the utmost care, right, to make those projects succeed. You're working in such a variety of businesses, right? And that gives you this data-driven perspective. Unlike most entrepreneurs who are building maybe one, maybe three businesses, you might have 10 to 15 businesses that you are actively participating in helping to scale. So you get to see how things work in a very different perspective. You get to draw out the common themes in everything you are doing, making everything you do have much more data-driven results or data-driven perspective. So let's talk about going from an external to an internal agency. So the goal here is to transform your agency from serving your clients to eventually serving your assets. And so over time, your marketing agency becomes the internal marketing arm of all these different brands that you own, rather than them simply being clients that can leave you at any time. So let's talk about elements of an asset portfolio here. You already have the first block, you're just missing the other two pieces. So you already have team and process, right? That's the main value of an agency, is the team that you have, the talent you acquired, and the kind of process that talent can go and do. The part you're missing is an asset, and typically an asset is a digital property that has leverage or systems of leverage and has the ability to be sold at a valuable multiple. In addition to that, the asset has to have the ability to have economies of scale, where you can use your resources across this portfolio to streamline the process, minimize costs, and grow faster, such as capital, labor, and synergy. So let's talk about some examples of assets. Now, obviously, this isn't an exhaustive list. There's a bunch of other kinds of assets out here. This is just to kind of give you a flavor of what does exist, where your agency can really help you grow something. There's content sites, which probably most people in the audience are familiar with. These are typically monetized through display advertising and affiliate offers, that kind of thing. Usually SEO traffic plays a major pivotal role in how they get traffic. Then there's e-commerce. There's traditional e-commerce stores. They host it on Shopify. And for SEOs, this is a very interesting space to be an SEO in, because the vast majority of e-commerce businesses we see, at least, do not do any SEO whatsoever. So might even be able to get your way into an asset by making a deal with an e-commerce client who doesn't do any SEO, because a lot of e-commerce is paid media. They're doing Google Shopping ads or Facebook ads. Very rare to find an e-commerce store doing actual SEO. And of course, Amazon FBA, kind of the darling right now of the e-commerce world. So that's why I wanted to mention. But there are skills that your agency has that could be transferred over to Amazon, right? By combining content sites with an Amazon FBA business is a fantastic strategy, where you combine both of those assets together. And finally, we have SaaS. So SaaS, software as a service, one of the best business models in terms of how valuable the asset can be, and it has usually the largest potential exit that you can possibly ask for out of all the assets on this list. So let's talk about how you do this. There's really two paths that you can go down here as an agency owner who wants to make this pivot, and you can either build or buy. So building is almost always going to be cheaper, but it is going to be more time intensive usually, and you just have to know whether or not you're going to be okay with that. It's just going to take time. Usually I tell people, give it 17 to 24 months to at least to build up an asset to something that is respectable, right? Now, if you want to skip that timeline completely, and this is not supposed to be a sales pitch for EF, but you could always buy a business that is already profitable. And while buying does take more upfront capital, it saves you so much time. It's like you're buying time, right? You're buying that 18 to 24 months, or maybe even 42 months of that business that was in the traction phase, or in the startup phase rather. Now it's in the traction phase. So you're able to do a lot more, a lot quicker if you buy something that is already making money. Like, for example, if you're building a site, there's no point to really do any kind of CRO tests or anything like that, like split testing emails, because you don't really have an audience. You don't really have any traffic or even email subscribers yet, right? So you're testing against nothing. Versus when you buy a site that already has an email list, already has traffic, then you have some data levers you can pull right away to make improvements that sometimes can move the needle dramatically. So those are your two paths. And this is the thing I recommend for agency owners. So when I talk to agency owners who want to do this, it's a very common problem where they say, yeah, I have 2 or 3 little sites that I never work on. I wanted to do this. And, they just don't have a good system of what they're doing. And the problem is they are treating their asset like this, second-class citizen versus treating their asset like a real client. Like, would you treat your client like that? Would you say, oh, I have this little client, I'll get to work on the things that they bought for, or they want me to work on, at some point in the future? Like, you absolutely want to do that, right? You'd onboard that client, you'd be on task, you'd have a timeline, a production timeline, all that kind of stuff. So I want you to change your mindset to think of these assets like clients, just like you would with any other client. You identify the asset, you decide to build or buy, you create a business plan, and then you have an account manager that oversees that relationship with the asset, just like you would at any like intermediate to large agency where you have account managers that handle different clients, right? Between the fulfillment operations and the actual relationship, right? So you should be having as close as possible to the exact same setup as you would with any client as you do with an asset you build or purchase. So each asset, like I mentioned, acts as a client, and the asset should be paying your agency just like any other client. And this sounds kind of funny. Like, why would my asset pay myself or pay my agency? And again, it's about the mental pivoting. Just the fact that you are paying out of that asset's P&L the same prices, just like any other client that is paying your agency, gets your employees on board too, right? Like, wow, this is a serious thing. Like, I better take it seriously. This is not just like some hobbyist thing I'm working on with the boss. This is like, something that's real, right? And you want them to see it that way. And this is a way to help you also see it that way. Now, over time, you will start to offload clients, most likely, as you onboard more assets under management. Now, that's not always true. Maybe you continue growing the agency, but most agency owners who do this love the freedom that they have when it comes to managing their assets versus having to manage clients. It's just a lot more fun and it feels a lot more rewarding. And to be honest, the scalability is often better. So over time, this is the transition a lot of agency owners will want to make. So let's move into that scaling, the asset flywheel for scaling. Now, this is a very specific strategy that combines buying and selling businesses together. So if you're familiar with the flywheel model in, say, marketing, where it flips the funnel on its head, where in a typical marketing funnel, you have the customer coming in from the top and going all the way down to the bottom, and basically all the other stuff filters out, leaving just that customer. In most marketing funnels, that's the ending of the journey. But the customer flywheel or the marketing flywheel, what it does is turns that customer when they get to that bottom of the funnel, they start producing more customers for you through their experience that they had and the transformation they had with your products. So this concept works very, very, very well when it comes to buying and selling businesses. So this mental model you can use on your asset, where the asset itself, the end goal of the asset is not to produce money for you. The end result of the asset is to produce more assets. And every time it does that, the flywheel spins faster. So every dollar you make from the asset should be bent towards the goal of getting more assets if you really want to do the strategy well. Think of it kind of like the FIRE movement with their frugality. If you can apply their same kind of frugality with all the money you're saving towards getting your flywheel to spin faster, it's going to serve you very, very well over, say, a 3 to 5 year period. And this is kind of the timeline. Now, I usually tell people this timeline represents about 5 years if you're going like somewhat fast. It could be 7 or 8 on the slower end, or it could be 3 if you want to go really, really fast. So asset number one, this is the first asset. Maybe you built this one with your agency rather than buying because you didn't want to step your foot into that pool just yet. So you scale this up to say 4 or 5K per month. And it took you probably 18 to 30 months to do that. And then you make your first exit around $100,000, maybe a bit more since valuations have gone up recently. And you use that money instead of going, because you want to go somewhat fast, instead of building out new ones from scratch, you go buy 2 businesses worth 50K each that are already making money and they already have traction. So you can apply your team onboard these 2 new assets, just like you would with any other client, and get your team working on them. They grow these businesses, say another 12 to 18 months. You can often sell businesses you buy a lot faster than businesses you build from scratch because you already have that initial 18 to 30 months of data that the original owner had, right? So you already have the data you need to make a good exit. And the second exit, you can look at collecting in 200 to 400K, right? And now all you do is simply repeat the process. Usually around 3 or 4 rounds of this, you achieve what I consider hypergrowth. You have a huge war chest. You can acquire and scale in ever more lucrative and competitive niches. And the great thing is you can compete. You can seriously compete. I have friends who have used this same exact strategy to sell well over $700,000 of websites with us. started a SaaS, they bought one rather, and then they also started a service business that is absolutely killing it right now. And they use this exact same strategy. We see it in e-commerce on even bigger levels, with people getting up to $3-5 million as their net worth relatively quickly, as long as you know what you're doing. I'm not saying this is easy, by the way, so don't walk away thinking that this is easy. This is difficult. It's simple, but it is difficult to do, but it's very much in the power, especially for agency owners, because of all the benefits you have with the systems that you've already created to have your team. So let's talk about, how do you roll all of this together to turn your agency into your own personal private equity firm? So how to take it to the next level. You only need another tweak to your agency machine if you really want to scale this. But first, I need to explain a little bit about what a search fund is, so you understand this concept. So a search fund is usually a private equity firm will set aside a portion of their capital and pay out a nominal salary to, say, an MBA graduate or someone that they have a lot of faith in their ability to run and grow a business. And that person will go out there and search for businesses to buy. That's their whole job, is go find a business to buy. They find a business to buy, they give it to the private equity firm, they look it over and they say, yes, this is a good one. They go ahead and buy the business. That person, the entrepreneur or the ambitious individual, becomes an entrepreneur through acquisition. So the private equity firm owns the vast majority of the equity in that business, but so does the person who went and found the deal without having to spend any money on their own behalf. This is what search funds do. And the reason why they exist is because private equity doesn't actually usually run any of the businesses that they buy. They have no interest in the operation, so they always need a good operator. And this kind of kills two birds with one stone for them. So in this example, in an agency, say you're running an intermediate to large agency, you have these account managers. Account managers are often very likely the people who are the key employees who are going to leave and start their own agency, and they're going to repeat the dream of an agency, like just like maybe how you did, or like how a lot of people do, and then their key employees are going to leave too. The reason why is because they want growth. That's why they're leaving. They want the ability to grow, to really own something, right? So why not give them that ability? Give your talent the ability to grow and have equity in something where they really do control the destiny of an asset. So you can turn your affiliate managers, sorry, not affiliate managers, account managers, into CEOs, where they own a large portion of the equity in an asset, or maybe several assets that you're growing, right? Because these don't have to be small businesses. These don't have to be $200,000, $300,000 businesses. These can be 5, 7, even 10, $15 million businesses, right? I've seen this agency owners do this all the time. The owner of ClearScope, he came up to me. I gave a similar presentation. He came up to me and said, this is exactly what he did. He used to be an SEO agency before he started ClearScope, and this was the kind of thinking that he had, right? So you can give this next level stuff to your talent rather than losing them, where they might theoretically become your competition if they start their own SEO agency. So that is part of it, that account manager can become your operator eventually, to where you get to just keep focusing on looking at new deals, right? And as you do this, you start getting into this place of transferable management. Your portfolio over time starts getting big enough to warrant other layers of management. You scale big enough to where you can create a management team for the asset or the group of assets, right? So there's all sorts of cool things here you can do with the talented individuals that are working with you. And that's what they want. If you can offer them the ability to grow, then they like you, of course, then they're most likely going to stick with you, because why wouldn't they? They like what they're doing. They just want more. And you can give that to them with this model. So let's talk about the ending of this. If you're able to do this successfully, then you are in a really, really good place. You have the ability to have the ultimate exit. Scaling to this level can give you extraordinary returns, much greater than the multiples that you bought a business at. Instead of selling an asset for low 6 figures or 7 figures, you're looking at a multiple 7 figures or an 8-figure exit with this strategy, with your agency that is covering all these different assets. In fact, you might be looking at something significantly larger than 8 figures. Just recently, in the last few months, we've had 2 of our clients become billion-dollar companies. they are this. One of them, it really did start off as an agency. They were an Amazon ad agency, and that turned them into a $1 billion company by doing a very similar strategy to what I just described here. So remember, your first asset is the most important. You got to treat it well. Start using the flywheel. Sell some of your assets to make that flywheel move faster, because you get that capital injection that makes it all spin so much quicker. And then give more management and even equity to some of your account managers, to where they become their own mini CEOs working for you in your portfolio. Button that all up, roll it up, and you will have a chance at an ultimate exit. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully it gave you a little bit of a different mindset shift on just what is possible as an agency owner. So if you have any questions, happy to answer.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Greg. So a few questions have been flying by here. So this first one is saying we've tried and failed a bit trying to acquire a number of assets. However, we found out that they require too much of our time compared to the return. Any idea what income level that it takes makes sense to start at to make an asset interesting enough to focus on? So I guess it's, I mean, I've seen something similar, I guess, where basically the focus has been on, I mean, people buying too small sites, or really just in a place where, you know, they're acquiring assets, are spending time on assets that are not making enough money to really actually spend it, to decide the time that it takes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's nothing initially wrong with buying a small business just to get your feet wet, you know, to understand the process. I actually think that's a solid idea. But once you're serious, you know, you don't want to be spending time on something that's not going to move the needle, right? So like you have to do something significant, and I don't know what's significant to you, unfortunately, because I don't know your situation. But you know, if you're looking to make 500K a year off of your asset, you're going to need a very different kind of business than, say, a 20K affiliate site, right? 20K valuation affiliate site, that is. So definitely look up, make that goal of what it would be interesting to you to focus on, and then make that part of your criteria for the business you're looking at buying.
Yeah. Yeah, I see this actually. I see this with a lot of clients I've coached, where they are an SEO agency and they basically they're trying to do this, but they're basically starting a bunch of affiliate sites from scratch, and the whole problem is that often they don't do one, but they do 6 or 7 that all make no money, and they all
for
end up
months and months and months, yeah.
For months and months and months and months, and it ends up taking so much time, and it never gets to a point of making money because they always get so distracted and so on. So, I totally see a lot of people in that situation, right? So definitely. Okay. Other questions here. So, search funds. Any good ideas on how to find these? I haven't heard of this concept before. So I guess
Sure.
it's an agency owner or someone. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not something you probably would hear of or even find of very often, because it's what private equity does. So private equity will go to Harvard, to the MBA business students, and like poach them, basically, like, hey, do you want this? Because some MBA people don't want to go into high finance. They want to be their own entrepreneur. And that's like the perfect thing for private equity. So you're not going to really find them like in a way where it's useful to you, most likely. What I recommend is you take the model and you apply it to your agency, right? The same kind of thing that private equity is doing can work just the same in your agency.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, here's a similar one to the previous, but basically, at what level do you recommend start working with assets? We have found that it can be terribly complicated to buy an already existing site, as there can be so many problems with it.
Yeah, and usually that's the best ones to buy because you can grow the profit the best.
Potential
Right?
upside, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any specific level similar to the last answer. One thing I would do if you're running into that issue is consider paying a premium multiple, because those businesses will tend to not have as many issues. That's why they're getting a premium multiple, which, yes, the upside is less because there aren't problems to fix, but also the focus of the time management it takes to really grow that asset is also different, right? You can focus a lot more on scaling versus fixing fires or putting out fires rather.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are the three biggest mistakes you see agencies making when they try and implement this strategy?
Well, one we definitely already talked about, trying to do six sites at once. That's a bad move. I would recommend doing one to focus on, start with. But the biggest mistake is what I talked about in the presentation. I talked to, and I'm sure Mads, you have too, dozens of SEO agency owners who have like all these tiny little affiliate sites that are, or tiny other businesses like e-commerce stores or whatever. And they have this booming agency over here. And they're always talking about like, man, I really wish I could just do assets and stop doing clients. But they're like, well, you have them over here. Just, focus on it, like treat it like a client, onboard it, right? Take it seriously. And that's the biggest mistake I see. So those two. And then the third would probably be, spending all your money too quickly to buy assets. You want to be conservative. So if you have $300,000 to spend, put that into three chunks where you only spend up to $100,000 on one business, and always keep like 10 to 20% working capital. So 10 or 20% of the valuation price in case a mistake happens or something comes up. So
that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, we love this model ourselves, to be honest. So one of the things I love doing is hiring really, really smart, bright individuals, making them responsible for a site and just starting growing it, right? Sometimes we always start with sites that are making money so that it's a proof of concept. But, we love acquiring sort of smaller assets, just putting one person in charge. Obviously, we run a multitude of businesses, right? But what I've found is that when you have one person just focused on that asset, it gives it an opportunity to grow, right? Because what I see with agencies all the time is they're like, oh yeah, with all our spare capacity, we'll build these sites. And the thing is, as most agency owners know, while they think they have spare capacity, since many of them haven't yet learned to delegate well and so on, they are often in the situation where they don't have the spare capacity to actually focus on these assets, right? And I've found the model to work extremely well. I mean, we've done it about 5 or 6 times where we've hired someone in, get them to build the first asset and be responsible for it, and just building bigger and bigger assets. Sometimes we sell the asset and buy a new one. And the whole thing is, it's a great way for us to, one, pay people better because, when they grow their skill set and so on, they basically become able to make a significant amount more money. And at the same time, they're in a situation where their risk is non-existent because they're effectively an employee, right? But we typically give them potential for upside when it goes really well. And
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
that's one of the best things about it, right?
Exactly. So I had one of our first ones where we did this. I had an employee that got we made a sale that was very good, and basically we gave the employee an extra year's worth of salary because they had worked extremely hard, right? And there's not a lot of places where you suddenly end up of the risk of getting a year's extra salary as a bonus, right? So that yeah, that's definitely great.
Yeah. It's so awesome because it keeps the talent with you too, right? Like because a lot of the times the most talented people at the agency are some of the most hungry. They want something of their own. So you really give that to them. It fulfills that need.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my biggest my biggest problem is always I love SEO so much, so I tend to jump in once in a while and look at stuff. But really, the key thing for me is that you grow the skill set with that individual, and you give them an opportunity to learn something that's super valuable, right? And on top of that, like they start learning the business skills, they start understanding all these things, and it just gives them, it just gives them unique opportunities, right? Excellent. Let's see if there's other questions here. So Thomas said, treat the asset as a client. Big mindset shift right there. Gold. Yes. I've seen that work. So I've actually seen a business owner that bought an asset and literally just put it into the process as a client. And I don't believe he actually told the team that it wasn't. So that was one way of doing it. I'm not sure that is the best way, but that's one way of doing it, right? But the problem is always your own stuff always take last priority. So the same thing when you're a busy entrepreneur, your own time is always the last focus, right? So you always spend all your hours trying to fix all your clients' problems. So totally.
For sure. For sure. Thomas, good seeing you, by the way. I'm glad you're here, my Facebook friend.
Yes, Thomas is here, there, and everywhere. So Chris Brooks again says, have you seen agency act as search funds where they make a deal with a PE fund and make the acquisitions by finding great business for the PE fund to acquire? Interesting.
So this does kind of exist, but not perfectly. I haven't seen it so much in the SEO space. There's no reason why it couldn't work that way. But for example, if you see these Amazon FBA aggregators, a lot of them, not as much now because the idea has caught flame, but the original ones, they were agency owners. Like that's what they did. They had a bunch of clients in the space and they were wicked good at it. And they saw how bad the other entrepreneurs were at it. And that they took that chance and they raised all that money from private equity. So there is an opportunity there where you could become kind of like an aggregator model in that sense, where you are the search fund kind of thing, and you are raising up all these entrepreneurs and brand ambassadors and stuff like that. Because all of these aggregators do have actual brand owners right underneath them. Some of them even let the sellers stay on as a portfolio advisor. So
yeah, I've seen this actually a little bit where people have used crowdfunding. So there is, particularly in the US, if you're American, I've seen quite a few of these crowd funds where you can actually go in, raise some funds, put down your idea, and so on. It's definitely more common with the likes of real estate, but I have actually seen a few people do that specific model with online assets, right? So something like crowdfunding maybe make it a little bit less intimidating initially. But fundamentally, it's definitely a possibility. And again, the main problem and the main challenge with these big funds is that if you want your foot in the door, you often need to know someone, right?
yes.
It's
Yes. If
in my
you look at
experience.
any private equity marketing site, they're terrible. They look like from the early 90s. Like these people aren't even connected to the internet, you know?
Yeah.
So they're really bad.
But I mean, again, figure out what circles they hang out in, go and find ways to meet some of these people. But my experience is like you don't just email and say, hey, I'm a great SEO, give me money, and
Yeah.
I'll do a fund for you. It's typically not the case, but yeah, go play golf or they play golf and go do all the
Yep.
fun stuff they do and
Uh,
accidentally bump into them.
yes, like you could write about it too. Like the one advantage of the fact that they are so bad at their own internet presence is it's not that hard to get like some content noticed in front of them because there's just not that many people producing the content. But in general, like if you're thinking about doing it with affiliate sites, I would pivot your mindset to e-commerce because it's going to be a lot more doable in e-commerce than content site just because a content site is very much goodwill. And unless you build it up to be really big, like a wire cutter kind of situation, a lot of PE firms won't go for it. But that's changing. We just had a few aggregators start buying high six-figure and low seven-figure content sites from us, specifically as an audience booster to their physical products.
Right. I was about to say my favorite business model, get a
Yeah,
solid e-commerce business up running and then just buy all the content side around. There's so many affiliate
100%,
sites
100%.
where you can go and change some links, put in some lead magnets, and you can literally use these affiliate and content sites to just blow e-commerce business out of the water, right? So
Oh,
I think
yeah.
I think there's a very big market for and I know a few people doing this in sort of 6 or 7 figures, just start out and they then just scale it up, right? Because the whole thing is with many affiliate websites, they're often not making a lot of money. Like particularly if you look at niches where Amazon is prevalent, right? Like if they're getting 2, 3, 4%, if you can buy the asset and you can, sort of replace some of the content with stuff that's getting you 30, 40% or 50%, sometimes even from product business, right? Like it can be a great way of scaling your product business. The key thing for me with those sites though is you need to focus on lead magnets. So you need to basically be able to capture more of the audience on those sites to put them into the bigger sites funnel. So that's
Yeah, this is perfect. So I'm working on a video series all about building an 8-figure media company. And the first part of that video series where I talk about how SEOs missed the boat on this, like that is so on point. Like they rank and then it's like I'm done, but they don't lose the traffic to the affiliate click, get the traffic on the email newsletter. Because if you build out these content sites, you can literally crush everyone in your niche with the audience that you build, right? And I don't know, it frustrates me that not more SEOs build out email lists.
I mean, again, it comes to the skill set. I mean, sometimes your skill set is SEO, right? And you're not good at copy, you're not good at email, and sometimes it can make sense to focus. But I would say if you are running an agency and you have some great people, I think that is a humongous opportunity, as I would say.
Yes.
So, Idris, sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly, but where do you go to find these affiliate sites to buy over them? I mean, it's very simple. When I have looked at, and I've done this with a few clients, right? But basically, when you go and look at an e-commerce store, you look at what is their key products. You go and Google for reviews for those specific products. You email the owners of those affiliate sites, and then you say, hey, do you want to sell? And the thing is, like, even if you end up giving 30, 40, even 50x sometimes, like the whole thing is if you have a successful e-commerce business with a solid funnel, you can use that traffic, you can use those visitors so much better, and you can make way more money than those 3, 4, 5%. All right. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can. That's a good strategy. You can use a marketplace like us. You can use another marketplace like us. But yeah, and again, what Mads is saying, like 40, 50x, like that sounds really high. But if you're running an e-commerce business, you can afford to do that. Technically, what we call this kind of buyer is a strategic Sally. That's the customer persona versus an aggregator is like an investor Ivan. The only type of buyer that can beat out an investor Ivan and get the deal and Ivan loses is Sally, because her model, when she combines these two things, is not 2 + 2 = 4, is 2 + 2 is like 16 because of the growth that she can do. So she can way outpay a $1 billion aggregator and make way more money than the aggregator would have with that business.
Exactly. And I think what I've seen a lot, I've actually seen people go the other way around will work just as well. So basically they build up these assets in the affiliate or in the content space, and then they actually go and acquire e-commerce business, right? So doing it that way around can work as well. And that can add so much fuel to your fire as well. The only thing is, if you acquire e-commerce business, some e-commerce business have a great funnel behind them and some don't. And the one thing I would say is if you acquire an e-commerce business that don't have like solid email flows and all that kind of stuff, that's definitely something to work on. But again, that's opportunity, right?
Yes. That video series I talked about, that's actually the path that we start with the content site and then go into e-commerce. And like the beautiful thing about doing it that way is all your affiliate commissions you're getting serves as research and development of what you should source in the first place, right? Because you can go into your Amazon dashboard and see what you're actually selling. And now you have an audience because hopefully you're building out an email list. So you have a brand that people already like. You can survey them. Hey, what should we do? And the moment you get your, like, say you run a home and kitchen site and everyone in your audience is begging for a funny spatula with like a meme painted on the spatula or something, you put that on Amazon, you go skyrocket to the #1 organic position on Amazon, right? With all that free external traffic. All the other FBA owners are paying for Facebook ads, but you have that traffic at your fingertips.
And then my second tip, like if you either have the e-commerce business or you acquire an e-commerce business, I don't get it, but all affiliates never go and find other affiliates. And for me, that's the number one thing. What I love the most about e-commerce businesses, go and find affiliates, right? Like don't just, if you have a content site, great, use that. And go out and find all the other possible affiliates you can find, and give them 8 or 10% or give them 20% if needs be, so that they sell your stuff instead of pushing some random Amazon product. Right? All of these guys would love to make more money, And well, most affiliates like making more money and having better deals. And if you actually go and find them, like I've worked with a bunch of e-commerce businesses that are just killing it with that model, right? So
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
one of the things, like even if you're going to acquire e-commerce business, like probably my first step, to be honest, is probably go and find affiliates, because there's no easier way to make more money.
That's a great point. When it comes to an actual successful affiliate marketer, they're like, especially if they're like a paid affiliate marketer, let's say they're not just an SEO affiliate marketer, they're running like ads and they're making it successful. Like that's some of the best marketers in the world. And you get them as your salesperson that can help your funnel. Like, hey, you should do this, change that. Like, and suddenly you're seeing all across the board your profit going up because of an affiliate.
Definitely. And yeah, I just find it so strange that all these affiliates are sitting around buying businesses and then they don't do the one thing that.
Yeah. It is terribly ironic. Yeah.
It terribly. And I mean, they know how easy it is. They know how easy, I mean, yeah, even get added to affiliate networks. Like so many of them is like, oh, but I don't want to, they try to take a cut. And I'm like, I don't care. Free traffic, free sales, scale the e-com, like get moving, right? So yeah,
it's just an ad, right? It's an advertising cost. So whatever your benchmark ad is on Facebook or whatever, you can apply that towards an affiliate commission, and really you're paying about the same. That's
the whole thing, and most people miss that, but particularly, I mean, e-commerce business, it's about customer lifetime value. Even if you make zero money on the first sale, focus on building a good funnel. Focus on really like getting those follow-up sales, right? I mean, yeah, there's some businesses. If you're selling air conditioned units, people probably won't buy another one for 10 years or whatever, right? But most e-commerce businesses that have a solid funnel, have multiple products, they can increase the customer lifetime value. So even if you give away like all the money you make on the first order and just keep the rest, you're still profitable. Now, the whole thing is the more your customer lifetime value is, the more you can afford to pay to acquire customers. And the more you can afford to pay to acquire customers, the more you can outcompete the market. And if you're giving 40% affiliate commission and all your competitors is giving 15 or 20, everyone want to push your stuff. And yeah,
100%.
Right. So that's one more question here. What online communities exist to level up from an agency to a PE firm?
So that's a good question. The answer is not any. I know of. I'm sure there's some people who would talk about it, but I mean, I this became something that I translated into my entrepreneurial circles, because Empire Flippers, when we first started, we were selling like little $30,000-$40,000 businesses, and those were considered huge businesses to us back then. Like $150,000 site selling on our marketplace was like crazy. But now we just as of a few weeks ago, we just sold a $12 million business, right? So our business is on our marketplace has gone up, and with that, my knowledge of who these buyers are had to go up. So I started researching into them, and they were private equity, family offices, ultra high net worth individuals, right? So I started looking at what they do and thought, how could I apply this to entrepreneurship? So I don't know any kind of community that is like focused on this type of stuff. I'm just bringing the word because I think these are some like powerful lessons that an entrepreneur could do in their own business.
Yeah, I think Travis's community might be a little bit in that direction.
Travis, yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Travis has a good one.
So that's over at investing.io. That is it's not the core focus, but there's definitely a few people I know in there that have that focus, right? But yeah, otherwise, most of the people I know doing this very successfully is generally people that have a network, but it's much more like masterminds, and they're much more collaborating. I'm not familiar with any sort of other bigger communities in that space. But hey, here's a business idea. What about starting one?
There you go. I'll come and speak on it if you don't mind.
Definitely. Excellent. Greg, I think that is the questions we have for now. So thank you very, very, very much. I know if people do have other questions to this, I'm sure they can go and harass you online somewhere. I guess the best place is Facebook, but Best.
LinkedIn or Facebook. Yeah. If you add me on Facebook, I apologize for my poetry. I like to post poetry on there. But LinkedIn is pure business, Greg. So if you only want that, add me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Well, Greg, thank you very much for showing and sharing all your knowledge. It was great talking with you as always. And to the audience, thank you very much for hanging on all the way to the end.